Hello everyone, my name is Kitetsu and welcome back to my channel. We've had the contents of the starter box finally revealed to us and I was not disappointed at all. But one thing I did want to do is talk about the new faction focus we've had for the Night Haunts, which in my opinion are the best models in the set. Like, these look absolutely great, but it's nice to have something completely unique. Hats off to the people who designed these because they look absolutely incredible. I actually think they are possibly the best models we've ever seen from Games Workshop. But the cool thing is when we look at everything in this box, we've now basically seen war scrolls for everything in it apart from the Glaivewraith Stalkers and the Grimghast Reapers, and technically we haven't seen the war scroll for the Knight of Shrouds on his horse. But because we've seen him on foot, we kind of know what to expect. Obviously, there'll be some quirks and interesting things going on there for the actual war scroll of this version, but it's not gonna like change our whole perception of Warhammer. We know what to expect with that guy. What we've had in this faction focus is the war scroll for the chainrasps hordes, the Lord Executioner, and the Guardian of Souls. I always forget his name for some reason, but he's probably the best model in the whole box so far. So let's take a look at the second part of this faction focus. It's pretty simple, shouldn't take me long, so I will power through this one and then I will go and talk about the Stormcast in another video. Let's start off looking at this Lord Executioner, which is an absolutely fantastic model, and he's got this huge two-handed axe which looks like it means business. In terms of his war scroll, he makes 3 attacks, he hits and wounds on 3s, he's got that fantastic rend of -2 due to the fact his axe looks nasty. Initially I was really disappointed with the fact he only does 1 damage, but then I realised he has an ability called Beheading Strike. If he hits on a 6 or more, the damage becomes 3, so that's pretty cool, and every time he fights he makes 3 attacks, so he should have a 50% chance of making a Beheading Strike every time he fights. So that's actually pretty good odds. Then on top of that, because of the army-wide ability here, he ignores modifiers to his saves, so he's got a flat 4-up save, which is absolutely fantastic. It's basically Stormcast armor that cannot be affected by rend in any way, and 5 wounds. To top it off, he's quite speedy at 6 inches and he can fly, so he just hops over models with no trouble. In addition to his 4-up save, he also has like a disgustingly resilient roll that you can make for every wound he takes, but this one is only to protect him against mortal wounds, so it's a little bit more niche, and I'm not quite sure why they couldn't have just made it for wounds in general, seeing as that whole ability is across the Nurgle range. It's not like it's overpowered, but it's nice to know that he's got a 1 in 3 of basically ignoring mortal wounds. Now we've also got this ability here, Staring Death in the Face, and this one is really good because it tells us about the role that this guy is obviously going to play on the tabletop. He's not there to go and hunt down hordes, he's not there to be fighting the battle line particularly, he is there as a hero hunter, and every time he fights a hero he can pick the one that he's in combat with basically, and then they have to subtract 1 from their hit rolls against him. So as a dedicated hero hunter, he's pretty good with his 3 attacks that could potentially do 9 damage with very good rend, an unmodifiable 4-up save where he's also at a -1 to hit, and obviously a 1 in 3 chance of protecting himself from mortal wounds. So not bad, thematically very cool, and he's probably going to be quite necessary in the box set of Stormcast and Nighthaunt. I don't doubt that the Stormcast are actually going to be slightly overpowered in this set, but in terms of adding some extra models to build them up into a balanced force, I'm pretty sure the Nighthaunt can take them on. Right, let's talk about the Guardian of Souls, which I think is probably one of the most essential models in the entire box. To me, the models that are the best are the ones that buff the units around them, and he has his Nightmare Lantern. It adds 1 to wound rolls for the attacks of Nighthaunt models within 9 inches of him, and 9 inches is quite a sizable distance. For an aura, that's really good. It's going to be very easy to get your chainrasp horde within 9 inches of him, and they're going to add 1 to their wound rolls, which is brilliant. On top of that, he actually has an amazing spell, Spectral Lure, and it's very easy to cast. You only need to get a 6, which is basically 2 3s on a dice. You can then pick your Chainrasp horde, and you can then return D6 models to that unit. Alternatively, if you've got another summonable Nighthaunt unit that's lost some wounds, you can heal D6 wounds to it instead. But it basically means you've got a Chainrasp horde that is now hitting on 3s, and you can return an average of 3 of them every turn, assuming you manage to cast the fairly easy magical spell. Then he can obviously fly. He's got the 4-up save just like the Lord Executioner does, which also can't be affected by rend, and he's not too much of a slouch in combat either. Like, that's definitely not his primary role, but he can definitely dish out damage if he really needs to. So finally, let's take a look at the chainrasp horde, and this guy in the middle is our Dread Warden. He's actually quite an interesting unit champion, and he's got a nice little ability in there that makes him stand out to some of the other battle line choices across the game. When you first look at their warscroll, you might actually be a bit disappointed. You might think, well, they only hit and wound on 4s. They've only got a 5-up save, their bravery's only 6, there's no rend involved, there's nothing special going on here. But actually, when you take into account the Guardian of Souls, all of a sudden he's wounding on a 3, which means this stat line here is identical to a Stormcast Liberator. And I always use Liberators as my golden standard for comparison. They might not have a 4+ save like the Liberators do, but then these saves cannot be affected by rend or modified in any way, which in some ways means you obviously can't make them better, but more crucially it means they can't be made worse, whereas a Liberator save could potentially be completely removed. Then on top of that, the Dread Warden not only adds an extra attack, but more importantly, the bravery of the unit whilst he is still alive is 10. So battle shock becomes significantly less of a problem whilst he's around. On top of that, they've also got very decent maneuverability, they can fly, and thanks to their chilling horde ability, they re-roll wound rolls of 1 when they have 10 or more models, and you get 20 in the box, so that's pretty damn good. Like with all horde armies, I think their tactical drawback is going to be trying to get as many of them into base combat as possible. If you calculated all of their attacks across the entire unit in one go, and you're looking at 20 of them hitting on 4s, wounding on 3s, making 2 attacks each, that's 40 attacks. Re-rolling 1s, you know, it starts to add up to some quite good damage output, but the problem is obviously you're not going to be able to attack with all 20 of them at once, so it significantly reduces their capability. But yeah, there we go. That is our look at the Night Haunts. A nice easy topic to talk about. Like I said, taking a look at the war scrolls of the Stormcast, I think there's going to possibly be a balance of power in favour of the Stormcast. If the first starter set was anything to go by though, we did actually have more points of Stormcast in that one, so if we balance out the Night Haunts with some extra units, then I'm pretty sure they will be able to hold their own. I don't know how the contents of the box are going to stack up against one another. I've got some high hopes for the Grimghast Reapers for trying to chop through some of the more difficult units in the Stormcast army, and as for the Glaivewraith Stalkers, to be honest, at the moment I have no idea what kind of a capability they are going to have. But anyway, I'm going to leave this video here so that I can go and talk about the Stormcast and make a follow-up video. But thanks for watching. Don't forget to like the video, don't forget to subscribe if you're new, and hit the little bell icon, and otherwise I will see you hopefully again tonight.